Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, of course, we have to talk about this report coming from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points. I've actually met Brett this past year at Summer League. Nice guy. We met just in passing through one of his colleagues, who's a mutual friend of my colleague at Hoops Hype. He allegedly not allegedly, he is reporting that allegedly the teams that have entered the DeMar DeRozan sweepstakes are the Bucks, the Clippers, the Heat, the Blazers, and the Grizzlies, and that it is viewed as essentially a one-year rental because of his contract, which is why the suitors between now and the deadline could be these teams that seemingly might be in contention to be a dark horse contender. And with that being said, I'd like to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section if you guys do agree with those reports on the potential trade candidates for a DeMar DeRozan trade. Now, I want to go real quickly. The Heat are currently third in the East, while the other suitors that were mentioned, the Bucks being the team that's currently the 11th in the East, and the other teams being the 10th seeded Grizzlies. The Clippers are in the 12th seed. So that kind of gives you an idea of the teams that are trying to trade for them or trying to trade for DeMar DeRozan, and the Trailblazers are the 9th seed. So a couple play-in teams, while I would say the Heat are obviously the best team trying to get him, and then the Bucks are a team that is probably better than what their record suggests. And as a result, they see him maybe as a piece to help them get pushed over the edge. While I think the only team out of the West that either the Grizzlies or the Trailblazers, they probably want a guy who can be a clutch player. Because at this point, if you're going for a DeMar DeRozan type of trade candidate, or you're targeting him, he's this year averaging 33 minutes a night, 18 points a game, while shooting just under 50% from the field, 34% from three rebounds a game, 3.5 assists a night, while averaging a steal and a half a game. Again, it's not really, he's a marginal defender at this point, but he does put up about 3 threes a game. Some games he puts more threes up, other games he puts less. So we're just going to go through and break down each trade that could potentially be on the radar for these teams. And let me know down below if you guys can see this clearly or not, so I can just adjust it for future videos. So we're going to go, as I clear my throat, we're going to go with the Heat first. And with the Heat are only going to do a deal, as someone who's fortunate enough to be able to cover them and be able to be credential media for them, I think they would do a deal that, and right now Terry Rozier's contract is not tradable. They don't know what's going on with there, and still impacting on their cap. As a result, it makes this a little bit more difficult than people would think. So there's no water in this, so I tried taking a sip. I know some people are going to be like, do you think they'll trade Tyler Hero? I know the whole contract extension is a talking point that truly I don't know what would be the right scenario, because I do believe paying Tyler Hero max or near max money is going to put you in a Bradley Beal situation that the Wizards were in, and similar with the Zach LaVine contract with the Chicago Bulls. They just have to play at a level and stay healthy that it's not unfathomable for them to do it. It's just very difficult for them to stay at that level to be worth that contract value. Now, with all that being said, I think they would want to keep Norm Powell in this situation. And I wonder if this whole situation becomes, if Terry Rozier's contract is able to be dumped to a Brooklyn Nets situation. And this is the only way that I think that a deal like this goes through, because everybody else on the roster doesn't seem like they would be worth trading. And if there was someone, if you're like, what's the trade sweetener? And I know he's playing really well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Jaime Jaquez. So because they probably don't want to extend him. And with DeMar coming in and with Tyler being healthy, it's going to probably push his playing time down. So in this scenario, we're going to assume that Terry Rozier's contract is eligible to be traded, because this is the only way, or his contract's been voided. And I think in this scenario, it would have to be something like this. All right. And where you send Jaime with Terry to the Nets. Nets are obviously buy out Terry. They take on Jaime. And I would assume a combination of like a Terrence Mann then and a Haywood Highsmith goes to the Kings, and you get yourself a deal that looks somewhat like this. Nets get the sweetener of Jaime Jaquez, a guy that they would maybe want to extend. He could fit them. DeMar comes in and joins Andrew Wiggins, Norman Powell, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and the rest of the crew. And then Terrence Mann and Haywood Highsmith gives the Kings some defensive pieces and some, players that fit what they're trying to do. So that is why I think a Heat deal is kind of difficult to do. While we've talked before, I know a lot of people were thinking, oh, Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis for Zach LaVine. And that's where the contract situation becomes a bit difficult. While a DeMar DeRozan for Kyle Kuzma swap is actually a bit more attainable. Now, if I'm the Bucks, I actually kind of want to keep a guy like Kyle Kuzma because he's fit into what we've been doing. And no offense to Bobby, but he's kind of been pushed back in the rotation. And Bobby, with, I believe, if you include a Gary Harris, I might have to include another contract. And this deal would have to happen after the recently signed restriction is lifted on December 15th. And for other players, it's January 15th. And still here, they're just $170,000 short. So it's either Gary Harris and another player, or it's Gary Harris or with a player who's making a bit more money than him. And I know somebody's going to say, what about Ryan Rollins? I don't think it would be Ryan Rollins in this situation. Could it be a Kevin Porter Jr. because Kevin Porter Jr. would allow this trade to happen, and they do need a ball handler. So in this scenario, if they were going to go for DeMar DeRozan, you're able to keep the whole team together, and it's Kevin Porter Jr., Bobby Portis, after the recently signed restrictions lifted on December 15th. This would allow, and with Kevin Porter Jr. being a guard, something that these Kings need, DeMar comes in as like this kind of filling in that Chris Middleton role they've never been able to fill. And now you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kyle Kuzma, DeMar DeRozan, and Miles Turner as your four guys right there. Ryan Rollins and Cole Anthony have really, supplanted Kevin Porter Jr. from the role that we expected him to be playing. Now, going over to the West, I think a deal that is Robert Williams and Matisse Thybulle. I know somebody's going to be like, well, wouldn't they want a guard? That is quite possible, but here you get some big play that you need, especially with Domantas Sabonis going to be out for a while, and you get it. It's 2 expiring contracts. You get off DeMar DeRozan. If I'm the Blazers, I'm not really offering much more than this, and it's kind of a win-win situation. I give you some defense. I know they're not the healthiest players, but DeMar's older. He fits what we're doing right here in terms of what we're trying to build, and I don't really have a guard to offer you, so that's kind of what, if I'm the Blazers, what I can give you. Now, draft capital, I know I've not put any draft capital into this. That's something that you guys can decide, because it's just such everybody has a differing opinion when it comes to what the trade capital should be. And I think that's where it becomes difficult to say. Now, again, going over to the Memphis Grizzlies, I wonder if they would want to do this through a Contavious Caldwell-Pope contract, which, if that's possible, I think it could be a straight up swap. Maybe some draft capital thrown in there for the Grizzlies, for the Kings to eat the salary, and it could be one of the picks that they got from the Orlando Magic. Maybe they want to keep Contavious Caldwell-Pope. I doubt it, and they want to do this deal through a John Conchar and Brandon Clark duo, which I think, again, would financially also be possible. I know both of them have a year remaining on their deals, which makes that a bit more difficult to see or to be without draft capital, because they're taking on the year, but you get to keep Contavious Caldwell-Pope. In theory, that's going to be able to fit them better, even though he hasn't had the greatest year. Now, we've talked about the Clippers the other day. This one, unless they wanted to do John Collins, which John Collins could work an expiring contract, maybe it's a straight up swap. I just think they need to keep John Collins. He's one of the only athletic players on a very old Clippers squad, so I would not trade John Collins in this scenario. Now, Derek Jones is another one, but it goes back to the athleticism. So I think this would have to be around Bogdan Bogdanovic. And I think it's either Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn hasn't been as impactful. Kobe Brown, I think, is another young guy that they want to keep out there. And it could be this deal right here. But the problem is that the Clippers would then have to include, or the Kings would then have to include a salary filler. Would that be a Dario Saric or a Devin Carter? There's been some rumors that Keon Ellis is being shopped around. according to my colleague at Hoops Hype. But that's the problem, is that it's 3.3, and with the situation of Chris Dunn and DeMar DeRozan, my apology, I looked at this wrong. It's actually 3.3 for the Clippers. The Clippers are actually the ones that need to shed 3.3 million. So this is where it becomes a bit difficult for this deal to go down, as it would have to include a Kobe Brown, and man, would it have to include a Cam Christie? I just don't think they could include a Cam Christie, and that's where it becomes difficult, because if they can't do it like straight up like this, they're still $650,000 over, which then makes it abundantly clear that this deal would have to be something with Derrick Jones Jr. And if I'm giving up Derrick Jones Jr., I'm probably wanting Devin Carter and Keon Ellis coming on the way back as the Clippers. And I'll throw you in this scenario, we already have Derrick Jones Jr., and if they really wanted a young guy, maybe we do throw in a Kobe Brown, and it ends up being a 3-for-3 swap. But what's ended up happening here is, because so we'd have to take off $3 million right here, which would be Devin Carter coming off of this, because he's making 4.3. So to make this deal go through, it could be something like this. No, we have to keep Kobe Brown in this deal to get it over. And then because of the hard cap, yep. So the deal would have to be Bogdan, Derrick Jones, Kobe Brown for Keon Ellis and DeMar DeRozan. I want that defense, that Keon Ellis, if they are shopping him. Now, if you could theoretically take you could take a minimum contract back if you were really pressed. And in this scenario, who would that minimum contract be? I wonder if they would, because he wouldn't be able to be traded. He was just signed, so I don't think he would be able to be traded till January. But let's say they did want Precious Achiuwa, the Clippers. That deal would work if it is a Precious Achiuwa, Kobe Brown, Derrick Jones, Keon Ellis, Bogdan, DeMar swap. And I mean, that's not terrible. You walk away, if you're the Kings, with Bogdan, who's an expiring contract because it has an option. Derrick Jones Jr. is the only money you're getting stuck on, and Kobe Brown is an expiring because they didn't pick up his option, if I recall correctly. Keon Ellis, Clippers get younger, a defensive guy, and they get another, energy guy in Precious Achiuwa while they take on DeMar DeRozan. That's something that kind of makes sense right there from that standpoint. Yeah, I think we hit them all. We did the Blazers 1, 2, 3, then the 2. Yeah, so those were all the deals that we had right there for Mr. DeMar DeRozan. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you guys think, and what deal would you guys do? And if there wasn't a deal that I mentioned as I hit the microphone, let me know what that deal would have been. Take care. Bye.